that already? Man, I'm still hungry. Okay, these two pieces of Ametrine come from Bolivia. I had a parcel of this that I'd purchased a long time ago, decades ago. And these are the final two pieces of that small parcel. They were preformed and they were about 10, between 5 and 10 carats each. So let's take a look at them and see what their weight is. .76. And 7.5 carats. And they're already preformed, so they shouldn't lose a lot of rough as I cut them. So I think I'll use these in this comparison of two different rectangular or emerald cuts and see which one I like better. I'm going to put the Ametrine into Refractol, which has about the same refractive index as quartz, and see if there's any issues internal to these stones. So this one has right there at the kind of end, it's near the end, it's near the surface, has an inclusion that'll get cut away. I don't see anything else that causes me concern. Anything else will be cut away as I facet the stone. So this stone's good, clean. And we'll take a look at the second piece. And that one is internally clean. I don't see any internal issues with this Ametrine. So now I'll put them on the top, and these are small enough that I'll use my super glue, Loctite 404, to put them on the stone. Generally for me, I don't use wax. I just haven't learned it, so I'm not an expert on wax. So I don't use wax. So if the stone is small enough, I use my Loctite 404 super glue, and right when I open the bottle, and I keep it in the refrigerator, and after a year I discard it. If the stones are larger, then I use my 2-part epoxy. So that's how that's the difference between me using super glue or 2-part epoxy, is the size of the stone. So let's go ahead and get these stones on the top and we'll be ready to start cutting them. Man, I am so happy to finally be finishing off this parcel or lot of Ametrine preforms that I had purchased well over a decade ago. I think, like most of you gem cutters, I try my best to cut more gem rough than I buy, but it's hard to do. Slowly I'm getting there. I have here a large piece of Ametrine. It's somewhere between 110 and 150 carats. Which I imported directly from Bolivia, and BOPIE, my wife, and I want to see which rectangular design will look best with this piece of Ametrine. So I will cut 2 other pieces of preformed Ametrine. They're both in the 7 to 8 carat range, and see which design we like better for our very large piece of AAA quality Ametrine from Bolivia. For one of the designs, I will use my go-to rectangle design, which is called the standard oblong step cut with cut corners. And here are the design information and cutting instructions, which I will use to cut this gemstone in this video. For the second piece of smaller Ametrine, I will then pick up another rectangular design and cut the other Ametrine in that design in a future video. It will probably not be a step cut design. BOPIE and I will then compare the 2 gemstones and see which rectangular design we prefer, and use that design to cut our large piece of rough with the kind of winning design. So let's begin working on this first piece of Ametrine. I preformed our preform of our Ametrine, our standard oblong step cut with cut corners. So I used a 340 grit topper because it was already preformed, so I didn't have to do much, just touch it up a little bit. And now I'll go over it with my 600 grit Crystallite solid steel lap, and then the 12M, and then I will, because it's a small stone, I believe I'll go straight to polish and see how that works out. And also I will cut the corners in near the end. I won't worry about it right now. I'll probably finish polishing up these step cuts and then come back and cut the corner and these corner cuts. So I've just started going over our Ametrine with my 12M lap, which is about a 1500 grit lap. So I've gone over these first row of facets, and you can see the difference between a 12M, and this was done with my 600 grit lap. So that's a 1500 grit versus 600 grit. And so that's why this 12M, after this, I think I should be able to go straight to polish. It's giving a pretty smooth finish, so we'll give that a try. So there's no right or wrong way to do a lot of things in gem cutting, but the way I do the corners for this designs like this is a step cut with cut corners, is I like to cut the corners last after I've polished everything up. That way I got the lines lined up, and I can make sure the point hits this line and these lines line up. So again, no right or wrong way. You can do the corners as you go along, or you can do them at the end like I do, just showing you the way I do it. And if somebody has a different way of doing it, please let us know in the comments. Thanks. Okay, I've finished polishing the corners and finished the pavilion, or the bottom half of our stone. So now I'll transfer our Ametrine and cut the upper half of our stone. I polished it with the Creamway lap by Garloose and cerium oxide and a water spray. For my standard oblong with step cuts and cut corners, I preformed the top, the crown, with 340 grit topper. Then I went to my 600 grit. Then I did my 12M. And then I went, this is 12M up here, and then I went straight to polish with my Creamway lap with cerium oxide and water spray. And so this row is already polished, and the rest of these rows are 12M pre-polished. So those are the only laps I've needed because this is a smaller stone and because it's quartz. So I'll continue to polish the crown. I finished polishing our Ametrine standard oblong design on the upper half of the crown, and this top part, I need to still cut the table, but this very top part, you see the frosted part there? What I did with the final row, which was to be cut at an angle of 12 degrees, after I cut it with my 12M, I went back and changed the degrees down to 9 or 8, I think it was about 9, and recut just down a little ways, just so that when I polished this final tier, I didn't have to polish this plus this. I just had to polish this tier. By recutting that top part at less than 12, the polishing lap never had to touch that, and I didn't have to worry about all that extra space to polish. So now I'll set my stone up to cut the table and polish the table, and we'll be done with this Ametrine. I finished polishing the table of our Ametrine, our standard oblong design. So I'll soak it in the acetone, and then we'll weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. In this video, I cut the first of 2 pieces of preformed Ametrine rough into a step cut rectangle design with cut corners. Next week, I'll cut my second piece of preformed Ametrine into a different rectangle design, probably not a step cut, probably more of a brilliant, and then compare the 2 gemstones to decide which design will look best for my very large piece of Ametrine rough. Then in a future video, I'll cut that whopper of an Ametrine using the winning design. The design I used today is my go-to design for rectangular step cuts. This design is suitable for cutters of all skill levels, and could even be the first design that a brand new cutter used when cutting a gemstone. However, I personally would recommend that the first stone a cutter cuts be a standard round brilliant. But I do know gem cutting instructors who teach with a rectangular design with step cuts as the first stone their students attempt to cut. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, just different opinions. So please let me know in the comments what you think of this gemstone and the design I used, and as always, happy fasting, everyone.